Hello, I'm Martin Mercer.
And I'm James Mastriani.
You've never heard of us.
We're two Brits who grew up in North London and have had varying success in the film and television industry.
In our ever-advancing age, we find ourselves on
the wrong side of Hollywood.
In our series of podcasts, we'll share our experiences of what it's like being a British bloke living and working,
or not,
in the biz.
We'll discuss everything from fish and chips to things that wind us up.
So stay with us. It's all uphill from here.
This podcast may contain strong language. If you're of a sensitive nature or easily offended, we invite you to, as they say in Blighty, jog on.
Thanks to our dear listeners like you, the Wrong Side of Hollywood podcast is made possible by donations from our Patreon members.
Whether it be a one-off or a generous monthly contribution, why not consider heading over to patreon.com/the wrong side of Hollywood.
There you can become a member and have access to behind-the-scenes videos and other exclusive content. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, mate. How you doing?
Not bad. Been a bit of a tough old month, but here we are.
Like you said, let's record a fucking podcast.
Exactly, and that's what we're doing. So, yeah, it's kind of started weird. We went on a nice trip to Palm Springs, and I kind of like Palm Springs because even though, as we grew up in lush North London, green upon green, it's complete opposite there. It's very desert, but it's desert with a floral base. And if you go at the right time of year, March, April, it's still cool. And you've got that lovely desert air and the atmosphere. And also you have the 1950s buildings, and you've got the main strip, and there's some cool coffee shops and stuff. So I like going there. I always feel lighter.
And a giant Marilyn Monroe.
That's right. But there's nothing to be seen under that fiberglass skirt, alas. But we went there and we did an Airbnb. It was actually cheaper because they got a situation there where they've had so many Airbnbs that people got fed up of it. And so now what they've done is if you have an Airbnb, the owner has to be on the premises or report to the premises every day.
Really?
So, yeah, it's because people are basically paying stupid money for these properties and then we're just renting them out and they're becoming party houses. That's the gist of it. And so anyway, the prices of Airbnb have gone down. So we got a very nice place with a pool and that was all lovely. And then we came back here.
Yeah.
To the hood. And to the fact that next door is in a house that has been left.
Dilapidated.
That's a lovely word, and it sums it up beautifully. It was owned by a hoarder, and basically somebody had broken in whilst we were away and been living in the top. And it's very difficult because there's one part of me is there's shelter. The person was living in the top, and eventually I finally managed to connect with the owner and say, look, somebody's breaking in. There could be meth being cooked, all kinds of stuff going on. Anyway. So
and you don't want to get into a squatter situation either.
Oh, yeah. And squatters have rights, mate.
Yeah.
Serious rights.
Yeah.
They can just show up with a fake lease. And I was talking to somebody who owned a property. And, you know, property owners are presented as the dark side. Well, there's many property owners that work fucking hard and just own one or two and actually are fair and honest and open. And they get talked about like these massive property owners that basically are part of some investment fund and they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
But there's many people that do give a shit. Anyway, so I spoke to him and we put on masks and that, and I went in with him. And it was literally like the upside down of Stranger Things. There was even white shit floating in the air, which I didn't realize till I put the camera on. And I was like, what's that? It's fucking white particles floating that we didn't see before. And it was bizarre. Anyway, so we wound our way through these rooms filled with all kinds of rubbish and trash. And we wound up to the top and there's a little nook. And lo and behold, there's a sleeping bag, there's food. And anyway, so we had to clear it out, unfortunately. And that was boarded up and it was resolved, touch wood. But it just brought to my attention the housing crisis in this city. They've spent $24 billion, James. Money that was raised from a proposition that was meant to deal with it. And there's been some improvements, but the homelessness has increased. It's literally like, I say this with respect, but it's like Dawn of the fucking Dead. And you have people who have been assaulted. You had somebody who was stabbed in the neck on the train. I know it sounds very negative.
It's awful.
It's the kind of mood I'm in. And also, by the way, with this money, it's not been quantified or properly calculated where and when it's been spent.
Yeah.
And now there's a proposition they want to put through to raise sales tax another 1.5%.
Yeah, I know. I saw that.
Are you fucking serious? I mean, you're going to have a mortgage to buy a sausage roll.
Yeah.
So all these things, and one more little nail in that coffin, is that the average price of one bedroom apartment in one car parking is $2,200 in Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's pretty awful. It really is. But talking of sausage rolls,
Yes.
I didn't get any.
Oh.
But if you look on
Bastard.
your plate, you'll see some stuff that I brought from the Robin Hood Pub Friar Tuck Shop on Burbank Boulevard. We talk about them all the time, but they've got a lot of good British tucker in there.
We got a few British audience members.
We do.
So it's good for them in the desert of terrible food in Los Angeles. Not really. You need a bit of British pep, so they need to know where to get their tucker. Now, this is a Mr. Kipling. And when I think of Mr. Kipling, I think of Mr. Kipling's apple pies and that voice. It's like this. Hold on, I'm going to... Mr. Kipling's apple pie.
They don't talk with them.
Mr. Kipling's apple pie. What did he used to say in the advert?
It's Mr. Kipling makes exceedingly good cakes
That's it. Mr. Kipling makes exceedingly good cakes.
without a mouthful of apple pie.
Yeah.
They did have some Battenberg in there, but I didn't want to get it.
Oh, I'm not a fan of Battenberg,
No, me neither.
but this, you see, now the pastry's a bit soggy.
Well, that's because I warmed it up.
Did you nuke it, James?
No, I didn't nuke it. I put it in the brand new air fryer that you and Sally bought Monica for her birthday present. So yeah, it'd probably been sitting there a bit.
Yeah, it wasn't cheap. But the thing is, it is very nice, and you can taste those British Bramley apples.
Yeah,
which
maybe
you
I
can't
need to
get
turn them
here.
upside down when I warm them up.
No, because I think you're just going to drain them of all character the more you keep pumping heat into them. But the pastry is quite flaky, and you know it's full of sugar.
Oh, that's brilliant.
You know. Now I'm wondering, there's no chemicals in there, is there?
Mm-mm.
Because that smells like Bramley apple. It takes me back to trolling along in Barnet as a boy. No, it's lovely, very
good.
nice. Yeah, it's a bit soggy, but that's your fault.
That is my fault.
Thank you.
And I also brought you a Welsh cake.
Oh, I like those.
I do too.
Yeah. Oh, this is lovely, James. I really needed this. A bit of Britain.
Mm-hmm.
Britain and a pie.
And an exceedingly good pie at that. Have a bit of your tea.
But you don't get apples like that in America.
Well, you can.
No, you don't.
Well,
You don't.
we have such a vast selection of apples over here, same as the rest of the world. But these are Bramley apples.
Yeah.
We don't get Bramley
No.
apples over here. We get everything else. Maybe we do get. I just think you have to be somewhere else.
That is very nice. I think for American audiences, if you have that, you just heat it up a touch, don't
Yeah.
microwave, put
No.
it in a toaster oven, and get that pastry nice and hot, and then serve it with some fresh cream.
I had some in there.
Oh, James, you got another one. Anyway, whilst we're masticating on our apples, what have you seen recently? Because we do like to talk about film during our Dunk Love section.
You don't have to sing it. We have a jingle
I
now.
know.
Dunk, 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 dunk love.
Beautiful jingle.
I went to see Civil War.
Oh, ouch.
Alex Garland.
I'm scared I can't see it.
No, it's definitely worth seeing for sure. As we discussed, it's not a feel-good movie, but it is fascinating. And what was interesting about it is you don't know what side you're on. And then as you go through the movie, you encounter certain people who you think are on one side or another, and they're not. It's very harrowing to watch. Everybody was excellent in it. There was a couple of really good scenes. I don't want to spoil anything too much, but good Lord, as you said, you didn't want to see it because we're living it. We're not there yet, but you can draw parallels to current events in this country and around the world.
Right.
And it is terrifying.
No. It seems to me he very cleverly, rather than segregating an audience before they've even finished watching it, he leads you through tropes that you think one person is this, one person is that. I haven't seen it myself, but it reminds me a bit in the excellent episode 3 in The Last of Us, where you think you've got this red-blooded male,
Right.
and he turns out to be a homosexual guy who is
Right.
actually loving and defending his place. And so it seems he's probably played that kind of hand from what you're saying. And not in exactly the same way, but maybe taking somebody who's in camo and you think, oh God, they're a right wing, whatever.
Right.
But it turns out they're actually not, they're this, and vice versa.
Right. There's a very interesting scene. You're embedded with a bunch of journalists who are trying to get to the president to have an interview before he gets either killed or put in jail or whatever.
Right.
They stop at a gas station
Right.
out in the country to refuel.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the journalists notices that there are some bodies hanging up in a car wash.
Right.
And so she goes to investigate. And the way Alex Garland has directed this scene is you're thinking, oh my God, these people are going to start raping and murdering these journalists.
Right.
And it turns out they are defending their property
Right.
from looters.
And so there's looters hanging up there, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting because the guy knows the looters who he's now strung up.
Right.
But this is a civil war.
Yeah.
And this is what happens. And from just that one scene, you can see these people aren't on any particular side. They're just defending their stuff.
They're on their own side, but which of course is a problem as well.
Yeah.
If you're on your own side, unfortunately, you can be faced with sides, Nazi Germany. Sometimes not very easy to make that choice. And it might sound weird, but if you were living in Germany at the time and there was food on the table and okay, it doesn't affect me as a smell of burning in the air, but it's fine. And that's the mentality I think we find ourselves in now. And maybe that's what the film is showing us as I'm fine, I'm working. Those people aren't, and they're angry. You know what I mean? It's very easy to defend yourself because, look, the government's fucking up. It's not doing the right job. I'm just going to look after myself. I'll have to see the film. It sounds very interesting.
No, it is interesting, and it's definitely worth seeing. I came out of it with an air of hopelessness to the whole thing, which I don't think maybe he did mean to have that effect on his audiences. But then again, saying that, Ex Machina was the exact same thing. There was somewhat of a half uplifting ending in the fact that she gets out, but then everybody else is either dead or trapped.
Yeah, but the interesting thing with that is what I got from that personally is that, oh, you're rooting for her, as they say, and she escapes, and then hold on, mate, you're rooting for a artificial machine who will kill you, basically. But that's the thing with robots, isn't it? You put a little face on it, you have that, what is it, the turning effect.
Turing,
yes.
Alan Turing.
I stand corrected without a fact check. Thank you. It's more gentle than a pedanting, I must say. But it's that thing of we will respond to robots. We will.
Right.
It's going to happen. You know, you have the dog robot from Boston Dynamics, the way it prances. Do, 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 do. You can buy the flamethrower dog now, 10 grand.
Woohoo.
Yeah, but it cooks you at the same time.
Oh.
Yeah, so you can buy that. But the thing is, if you put a fluffy little head on that and it sniffed and it responded, did its cute little things, you would respond to it as you do a real animal. And I think that Ex Machina really delved into that.
Yeah.
So I'll definitely see this Civil War once I've taken a large whiskey or something, I think.
You'll be asleep in minutes.
Yeah.
So what did you watch?
Talking of frightening films, I saw Barbiezilla, otherwise known as Godzilla v. Kong, The New Empire.
Oh, dear.
I saw it with Lucas and Sal. We just needed a break from things. And I've never taken acid or any of those drugs that in the 60s expanded your mind. But this film felt like it. It was literally a multicolored mushroom nightmare featuring extras from Planet of the Apes. It was like, we're going to throw some apes in there, little mini Kongs. I don't know what they were doing there. But it was just this crystalline green, blue, pink, yellow, absolutely horrible with respect to the crew, because you do jobs and you have to design it and everything. So I'm not slagging them off, of course. Some of my friends worked on it. But as a movie guy experience, absolutely awful. And it just made me worship Godzilla -1 even more.
This is what I don't understand. The people behind these Americanized versions are also the same people that did the Japanese version.
No. Stop. Correct yourself. Toho owns the rights to Godzilla. They're the ones that created it in the beginning. They have the studios in Japan. But what they did, like any entity, they say, yeah, you can make a Godzilla, but you pay us X amount of dollars.
So they license it.
Yes. And Legendary, I believe, are the ones that make it here. And they've created this whole monsterverse. And welcome to the Monsterverse.
But here's what I don't understand is if you look at any of the end credits for these legendary versions, they're listed in there as executives.
yeah, but
So they must have a say in
no,
what
not
happens.
necessarily. My experience of that is limited to the past. For instance, Clive Barker would be executive producer
Right.
on Hellraiser 265. He got a check and that was it.
Hmm.
You have no say.
Interesting.
I think possibly, it depends how Toho, they might be very happy with it.
Right.
It's just my opinion, and the film has made money. Is it Godzilla -1? Look at the audience reaction to that film. That film could have just been a fart in the wind. It was made for nothing and
Right.
it could have disappeared, but it didn't because people were in the mood for some solid storytelling and
Right.
excellent visuals.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Now, to be fair to this movie, if I was a producer, I could see a gem of something you could be done with that. Do you remember the British movies from the 70s, The Land That Time Forgot,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
instance?
yeah.
Now, that had a feeling of that. And I love The Land That Time Forgot. You know, it had humour, it had good visuals for its time. They were cheap. It had Roger Dickin, who's passed away, I'm afraid. He created the original Alien Chestburst, and he made all the monsters for these movies.
Right.
So I can see that in this. I was like, yeah. And even the colour, I was like, yeah, okay. You go into this monsterverse, this underground cavern. It's very Land That Time Forgot, you know, all that stuff. So I could see it. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's great. Oh, and there's a great sequence where it's a bit like the dropship from Aliens. They
Okay.
just drop down the portal and they're immediately amongst these flying monsters. And then they change the camouflage on the spacecraft to match them. And I was like, yeah, that's great stuff. But the rest of it and the fighting and the monsters, no, it didn't work for me.
How much would you rate it out of 10?
Ooh, 5. No, 3.5.
Is that being generous?
I think so. So that's movie-wise. Now we got the streaming universe. Anything that caught your fancy?
Yeah, we just started watching Dark Matter on Apple TV with Joel Edgerton and Jennifer Connelly.
Now, can I just interject here,
Yeah.
as I want to do? When I hear dark matter, I think of that substance that makes up 90% of the known universe, apparently, that we can't see.
I haven't got that far into it so far.
No, that's the science of dark matter. I'm just saying, has
Oh.
that got anything to do with the dark matter here, or is it just another?
All I've garnered from the first episode is this scientist, played by Joel Edgerton, is abducted one night and he wakes up in a lab, for want of a better term, and his wife is not his wife, and apparently he is in a parallel universe. And I believe from the general blurb that is available to anybody, it's about him getting back.
Right.
It's good, I have to say. I enjoyed it, and we're looking forward to the next one. But yeah, it's nice to see Jennifer Connelly in another role.
Well, sorry, I'm just munching through a chocolate digestive.
Nice.
Yeah, Jennifer Connelly, who
Not
I met
cheap.
on my first film, Labyrinth, and very nice.
And I met her on your first film as well.
Because I introduced you.
You did.
I'll never let you forget that.
No, and I won't forget her either.
No, indeed. You shouldn't. Very, very, very good actress.
No, she's brilliant.
When talking of Apple,
Yes.
now, and this sounds weird because we've got two massive wars going on at the moment. So I feel guilty saying I enjoyed Masters of the Air.
Oh, but that's a World War II pick.
It
right?
is. And
Yeah.
the thing is, I used to watch these World War II things. My dad loved World War II.
Right.
He was
Movies.
in World War II.
Sure, but he loved the movies, not
movies,
being
yeah.
in World War II.
Well, we know that.
Yeah, I know. Just
Come on,
being
don't-
pedantic.
Fucking hell. You're going to draw us a picture, will you, and hang it on the podcast. Anyway,
No, that's your job.
so he was in World War II. He was a boy. He used to collect shrapnel, which is the shell casings that were exploded from the ACAC. And so I have that interest in it. And Masters of the Air, Apple, absolutely astounding. Now, the thing is I know I'm looking at digital stuff. They did build a full-scale aircraft. When I say build, I mean they built it using modern techniques.
Right.
And they use the volume stage.
Right.
And I love it because it goes into the air crews. It goes into the fact that they wore these suits. It was minus 50
Right.
up there in the aircraft.
Yeah.
You're in there in this fucking bubble, which basically you got into that glass bubble with the machine gun your chances of survival are zero. You would be the first one that would be hit and you'd be splashed to the four winds in there. So just from the technical details alone, let alone the bravery, the storytelling, the fact that these guys at that time went up in the machines and they were kids, but the decisions and choices, these kids, these farm boys from Nebraska, they'd never, England? What the fuck? A small little English pub with our little noses stuck in the air. These guys came in and they did this amazing stuff. Absolutely brilliant. I recommend it, James, because you haven't seen it.
I will watch it.
Yeah.
I'll add it to my list. You also saw Fallout, correct?
I did. Now, when I think of the title, there's an old joke.
Why fronts prevent fallout?
Yeah. And that's all that my little brain, my little immature brain can think of. And there was another one, a Cold War joke. Did you hear about the card game with Andropov? He threw his hand in. Get it? Andropov?
Yeah.
Hand drop.
Yeah, I got that. Terrible joke.
Yes, Fallout. Now, I had heard of the game, but I'd forgotten about it. And I saw Fallout and I saw that actress who we're going to have to do a fact check, but she's actually British. And she has these very big eyes and this very 1950s face.
Okay.
And she's very pretty and she's very good actress. And she was in Yellow Jackets as well.
Okay.
Which I love. And anyway, so at first I was like, oh, what's this? It's excellent. It hits all the right notes of design, acting, story, depth, and the texture of it. There's a character in there, again, I can't remember the actor's name. He plays a character called the Ghoul. I love the Ghoul. I'm a huge fan of the Ghoul. And it's a beautiful prosthetic makeup with a little bit of digital enhancement. Think Voldemort from Potter, nose removal.
Right.
And it's just brilliant. And it's just a show that I couldn't wait to get back to because it deals with that apocalyptic, we're teetering on the edge of it. And yet there's this weird human desire to experience it. I think we've got a big problem, human beings. We write stories about the apocalypse. We call it the Bible. We do all these stories, apocalypse. Like we have this weird need to see the end of things in order to discover why we need to live. It's very bizarre. Anyway, Fallout. Excellent. Okay. I recommend it.
And I think the actress you were thinking of was Ella Purnell. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's British, right?
Yeah, she is from the UK.
Excellent. Well done.
And she was best known for a role in Tim Burton's Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see that, actually. So, yeah, so some good shows, and it's interesting that the streaming world, they've got some really good stories. Very briefly, I was watching A Gentleman in Moscow.
Oh, yeah, that's, what's his name?
You mean Ewan McGregor?
That's the one.
That's right, and I'll tell you what, he's not Scottish in this, he's from Moscow, he's Russian.
We should slow down.
Eh?
You said he's Russian. I said he should slow down.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, very good. I'll be here all week. Don't forget to tip your waitress.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's excellent because there's something about Moscow. With my fascination with Russia, because my family comes from Russia, they had to leave because, them Jews. Anyway, so they had to leave, but I've always had a fascination with Russia. I went to Russia. I worked on a movie there, Crime and Punishment, just after Perestroika. So you didn't have what you have now, and Putin was in the KGB still back then, or out of it and manipulating his way up. But it was a lovely place. I loved the people. Everything was glued together with string. It was very bizarre. But watching this film reminds me of it, even though this takes place in the days of Stalin, the boss, and his dreadful, the terror, as they called it. Right. Basically, I think it was like 700,000 people got sent to the gulag, an absolute nightmare, and everybody lived in fear. Of course, it was the destruction of the nouveau riche and the wealth, and it was this idea, and actually this connects to another podcast we're going to be doing in the future, because this idea that you have some revolution, and this revolution will bring prosperity to all and peace, and invariably it doesn't. Right. It just brings a scumbag into power who takes lives like he's cutting flowers, you know? Yeah. And so this man, he would have been sentenced to death, but he's got some friends in the party. He wrote a poem that supported the party's beliefs, and so he's sentenced to spend the rest of his life in this very posh hotel.
Oh, nice for some.
Imagine you're trapped in the Savoy.
Oh, yes. God forbid.
Terrible, eh? Yeah. Anyway, it's an excellent film. It has a very nice atmosphere, and it's brilliantly acted, and it's very gentle. And I've got to be honest, there's a lot of violence on TV, and I just think this, oddly enough, in a very violent period. It's very gentle, and it's like reading a Russian novel in a way.
Only not as thick.
Yeah. Oh, you lost me there. Anyway, and just to finish up on this movies entertainment, it kind of reminded me of another experience, and this is a bit serious here, ladies and gentlemen. Baby Reindeer. You haven't seen it,
No,
have
I
you?
haven't seen it yet.
Okay, it's excellent, and actually, I didn't know what it was about. And of course, it's all in the news now. It's Netflix #1 show.
Right.
And the character who is, I won't do as spoilers as much as I usually do, but one of the characters is a very aggressive woman who just sends hundreds of texts and everything. Anyway, now in the show, they hide her identity. They don't call her a real name. And the actor, whose name is I've forgotten, he did everything he could to keep her identity quiet. But nonetheless, people have dug her up, and she was interviewed on Piers Morgan and so on and so forth. But the interesting thing in it, it does deal with sexual experiences and aggression. And there's a couple of seriously disturbing scenes in it. It's funny, most people just talk about the disturbing scene where he is actually raped by a gentleman.
Oh.
I use that word very loosely. He's raped by a man who's a very powerful personality in the movie and TV industry. We don't know who he is. People in the business apparently do. And there's another sequence where he actually goes and puts himself on the woman in question. And I thought that was pretty disturbing as well, but that's not talked about as much. But anyway, it reminds me of being a younger lad. Now, I didn't have that experience, but I hadn't gone out with girls at the time. I was a bit of a late developer, and I did meet a friend, and we became really good mates, and it went down the path of being a bit, how can I say, a bit handy. I'm struggling to say. Well,
Notice I'm not helping you.
It wasn't homosexual, but it was verging on experimenting with, your friends.
This is a first. You've never shared this with me before.
Although I had. Oh, that biscuit's catching in my throat, funnily enough. But let's put it this way. As I say, I hadn't had experience with girls and became so close with this guy, but it became almost physical. And there was one moment when I used to stay over at his place, and we did sleep in the same bed, but not nude. But I was rolled over one way, he was the other way. But I woke up, and this chap was reaching for my chap. Yeah, and I literally jumped up, I got out of bed, rolled over to the side, packed my bags, and left.
You never told me this.
Yeah, it's hard to talk
And you
about.
call me your friend.
I think I have talked about
You
it.
haven't,
but
not to me.
Your macho-ness. I
Oh,
never
no,
told you
you
that.
never told me that.
Yeah. No, it's before I had sexual experience with females. But it was, you might laugh. But
No, I'm laughing
it's
because you
hard-
chose the word
it's
females
hard-
as opposed to
well,
women or girls.
Well, it's hard to say, but this brought it out because I was like, oh, this is a mate. And hold on. And yes, I guess you're sleeping in the same bed. There's something, as I say, not nude, and there was none of that activity. But nonetheless, there was a closeness. Let's put it that way.
Think of it as Laurel and Hardy rather than something else.
I can't, you see.
No. I'm just saying,
Laurel and
look.
fucking Hardy.
No, what I'm saying is that, no, think about it. Okay. Yeah, Martin,
Go on,
what I'm saying is that nobody batted an eyelid when Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy got into bed and took a nap.
Right.
They weren't sexually
Yes.
involved in each other, and nobody thought anything of it because it was a different time.
So we could call this the Laurel and Hardy syndrome. Call it a Hardy hard
But
on.
that's the point I'm trying to make. That's...
No, come on, be serious.
I'm not the one laughing, you are.
No, but what I'm trying to say is, and it's a good show when
Right.
it brings something that I hadn't thought about for a long time to the fore.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God. Now, as I say, I didn't experience what this guy experienced, thank fuck. But you're just like, yeah, I think many people go through these things where you think you have a friend. It maybe gets a little bit physical. I'm talking same-sex friend.
Yeah.
And then that other person takes the liberty, the jump, as it were. Oh, now in this story, he had all these drugs he was being given. I fortunately didn't have that. We did drink and that,
Right.
but not to that extent. But anyway, it just brought it up. And I think hats off to Netflix for producing this because it did make me think a bit about it and it helped me have empathy for
Right.
that character, but also look at myself and in a way not blame myself for something that happened back then that I didn't feel comfortable with. Anyway, I think if a show can do that,
Right.
it's good.
Well, there's a show on HBO, and I forgot the title because I'm an idiot, about children working in television.
Right.
And all of this stuff that goes on similar to
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Did you watch it?
No, I want to watch it only because I've worked in children's entertainment,
Right.
especially in the production side. I know people who've been watching it going, yes, it was terrible time, and it was allowed to carry on and continue. So yeah, it's a bit strange.
No, it's interesting. Having been a child actor myself, I started at 12,
Right.
same age as my son. Oh my God, that's so bizarre. The first show I did was I Remember Nelson. I was just an extra. I have a friend actually who's a fan of us. He's actually an award-winning editor, and he was on that show as well. But of course, it went on in Britain. You had fucking Jimmy Savile, scum like that.
Yeah.
But fortunately for us, we were so protected. We had a chaperone.
Right.
For ATV, or Central Studios, it was 100% that nothing happened to us, fortunately. But I remember being 12 and going into the cafeteria at Elstree Studios, and you're just blown away by the scale of it and the power that people have and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I can't imagine. I would find it difficult to watch that because I couldn't watch the Savile. I watched the first one. I couldn't watch the second one.
I watched
too much.
both episodes on that, and it was horrible. I mean, you feel dirty just watching this man, the way he acted and the way he carried on with people. And one of the reasons why I wanted to finish watching it was because I wanted to see him get his comeuppance.
Right.
Where the family literally took the gravestone down and wanted nothing to do with it.
When he's dead.
Yeah, when he's dead. But
too late then.
no, of course, the fact that he posthumously gets completely taken down. Yes, he should have been taken down well before.
No, that's what you were saying.
But
Symbolically.
and I think that was really important. I needed to see that. But yeah, a couple of friends of mine watched it, and he was just saying, this is terrifying. I can't bear to watch it. But he goes, I'm going to stick with it because I want to see how he ended up.
Wow. I mean, you need to know how these people operate, but unfortunately, I hate to say it, ladies and gentlemen, but it is people with power in the highest levels of society.
Yeah.
It's been proven time and time again, trusted people. In Buddhism, it's called inherent darkness. There's no real scientific explanation for it. This darkness that humanity has. Now, you could turn around and say a lion eats a doe. That's evil. No, it's survival, and you're born on a planet where food is somebody else's life. It's a very strange existence we live. But this whole darkness, and you see something like that in that person, it shakes you to the core.
Thanks for bringing the conversation down.
Well, no, it's been a bit of a difficult month, and as I say, let's fucking record a podcast because that's life in LA, isn't it? It can be very hard. I think it is very hard. There's lots of people not working. There's restaurants closing down. There's so many places in North Hollywood that closed down. The knitting factory, the bar, so famous, I can't even remember the fucking name. But there's the cost of buying food and all this stuff. It's snowballing. And so you can't but help absorb that. But we've got some interesting interviews coming up. One particular that goes back to what I was talking about before about revolution. That is going to be awesome.
Yeah,
I cannot wait for that.
I know.
And it's perfect LA material. Living in LA, surviving in the trenches as we do.
Well, I'm going to finish on a light note.
Oh, please do.
Texting.
What are you saying? Sexting.
Texting.
Oh, okay.
What kind of texter are you?
Texture, I'm pale.
No.
English pallid texture. No, what kind of texture? I'm a texture that when it comes to you, I just do anything I can to wind you up.
Okay, let me just put some clarity on that for listeners who want to know. Are you the type of texter that sends one text after another, after another, after another? Or are you the person similar to me who puts everything down in one text and sends it out? Yeah, So Martin has this wonderful habit. Hello, how are you? What are you doing today? Why don't you do this? Should we work on that? Shall we do this? And I'm like, my phone's blowing up.
Well, James, as I said, I do because
You're not the only one.
Yeah, but when I text other people, there's a presentation that is needed.
Hurry up.
So when I text you, it's all the fucking costumes off, mate. You're getting a raw, 100% Mercer.
Don't do me any favors.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
No,
I want to. Excuse me. Funny you mentioned this because our lad goes to LAUSD, Los Angeles School District Department of Education.
Los Angeles Unified School District.
That's what I said. Anyway, so they send texts, but constantly. Boom, 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 boom. Sunday, Monday, Wednesday. I'm on the John, as you say here. Texts. It's ridiculous. But the thing is this leads on to something else. And I'm sorry to say, in the inevitable darker side, LAUSD, they're having a problem with phones in schools.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in some schools, you come in and you put the phone in a pouch and only the teacher can unlock it. That's about 35 grand's worth of pouch you have to get.
Wow.
In other schools, the teachers don't want the students with the phone, but the parents want them to have the phone.
Yeah.
And you can't tell the parents anything. How am I going to get in contact with my child? And all that
Well,
stuff.
like you used to do in the old days, which was called a frickin' school, and they go and get them.
Exactly.
We've all seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right. And there's a situation as well with these phones, they're not allowed in lessons. But then, of course, the teachers who are so overwhelmed with the size of the classes are like, well, if arsehole kid is just on their phone not paying attention to lessons, then, well, at least they're quiet and not disrupting my class.
Right.
So there's that. But then there's this whole fight situation. Now, it's not just limited to Los Angeles or America. It's actually in Britain too. These dreadful fights ever since the pandemic have been breaking out.
Right.
And these kids have been filming them on their phones, which exacerbates it. You know, with this whole texting thing, and I really do feel that the pandemic has just opened up a whole can of worms with communication and how to communicate using an electronic device. And as you say, when I text you, I'm in the raw. But when I text, especially work, I think very carefully about what I text and how I put it, because it can be read in so many different ways.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why in previous times, either with you or other people, because texts and emails can be completely misinterpreted from the way that they were intended to be, I'm going to fucking call.
Yeah.
I'm just going to call you because it's a lot easier than having this stupid back and forth.
I wish I could pull up an example of some of our things.
Well, yeah.
It has got a bit tasty, hasn't it? It has got...
But yeah, I mean, we've had some very strange back and forth texting.
Now I'm going to try and look for them.
But the thing that gets me is I can be responding to something that you've asked in a first text, and then you've already hit me up with 3 different texts that are either hurry up,
Oh, yeah. I'm
TikTok,
terrible.
time's wasting, all this kind of stuff. And I'm still responding to the first thing.
Oh, here we go. I'll just quickly read this out. I don't
Go
know
on
if this
then.
is going to make the cut. I'll do it in a Welsh accent so we know there's James and then there's me. Can you come by? No, I'm doing it here. It's nothing big. Just sign angle. And sign placement? Emailed.
Dude,
Got it.
I can't understand you. Do that again, but with English.
Okay. Right, James, can you come by? Martin, no, I'm doing it here. It's nothing big. Just sign angle. James, and sign placement. Thanks, mate. Emailed. Martin. Got it. Cheers. My take on the blurb notes above yours. That's James. Me. Splendid. James, you okay with my blurb take? Not ready yet. Just did patron. I'll have a look. Check patron. James, can't yet. Seriously multitasking. Me. Do as you're told.
And meanwhile, my blood is boiling. I'm just like, "Argh."
Now, if I pull up a work email,
Yeah.
completely different. You
course.
know, it's just like...
It's just the amount of texts that come in one after the other. I'm like, you know what? I'm just coming over. I'm just going to come
Yeah.
over, sit with you and just talk about it. But yeah, so
Yeah.
there's that. What kind of texter are you, our listeners? Leave a comment in the comments.
Yeah, exactly. Look, there's our Facebook page. There's our Patreon. We know times are tough. We know it's not going to happen. But anyway, just for a laugh, check our Patreon page.
Yeah.
And you can check our Facebook page. And look, we've got some good support out there. A very good friend, Peter Rubin. Hello, Peter.
Hello, Peter.
He says, and this is a genuine quote, "Hey Martin, I'm very late to the party, but I wanted to tell you how much I love your podcast.
Not mine then.
No. I've turned Vanessa onto it too, and she feels the same. You guys are great."
Awesome.
Yes!
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, no, you see, we need more like that.
Bye.
Goodbye, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Before we go, we bring you our
Fact check! Fact check! Fact check!
Fact check segment.
Here with the benefit of hindsight,
And editing.
we can own up to our mistakes.
James, Bramley apples. The apple dates back to 1803, Nottinghamshire, England, where it was originally planted by a young girl. It was, and remains, as we know, the most popular culinary apple in Blighty for its high acid and ability to cook into a creamy, light puree, and its excellent for Mr. Kipling's pies.
But can you get them in Los Angeles?
I don't think so. I think you can go to some posh grocery shop and pay through the nose, but I think they're pretty hard to find here.
Okay, British pubs it is.
Yep.
Okay, well, Walton Goggins is the actor that plays the ghoul in Fallout.
What's he been in?
He has been in one of the best shows on television in the last few years called Justified, a superb show. I can't recommend it enough. He is fabulous.
We'll have to stream that. James,
Yes.
the HBO project that you couldn't remember was Quiet on Set.
Ah, yes, very scary. Although I haven't seen it yet.
No, I don't think I will.
And Martin, Beth Sheda
Yes.
was not the name of the games company.
Oh.
It was Bethesda.
Ah.
Yeah.
And James, a correction for me.
Oh,
A self-correction. Whoosh, whoosh. Richard Gadd is the name of the actor who now appears to be facing all sorts of repercussions for his project Baby Reindeer.
oh, I'll still have to watch that.
Yeah, it's great.
And the name of the bar that you couldn't remember was the famous Federal Bar on Lancashire Boulevard.
Ah, yes. The knitting factory, I believe, is there as well.
Oh,
Yes, I've never been, of course.
No.
But I think that's still open. Cheers, mate.
all right. See you next time.